Good morning, nonlinear class. This is going to be our first video that we will be using this trimester, and I hope to do this entire unit in a flipped model, which means you will be watching your videos at home, and then in class we will be doing more activities and group work, and we will have time where I can help you more with practice, because factoring is something that is brand new to all of you and tends to be a little bit more difficult. And this will also serve us well when I am gone for that week. You will have videos to watch from me, so we won't have to rely on the sub to give you material. So today is our first day, and let me take you through your notes. We will use the same exact note packet. So our objective for the day is I can factor using the greatest common factor. And I'm going to start off with what you need to know. So our first definition here is factor. A factor or factors are numbers you can multiply together numbers you can multiply together to get another number. So again, the definition of factor or factors is numbers you can multiply together to get another number. So the first thing I want you to do is list the factors of the following numbers. So the first number is 2. What numbers do we multiply together to get 2? And I only want the positive numbers. So the factors of 2 are 2 and 1, because I can multiply 2 times 1 to get 2. Now obviously I can multiply 2 times negative 2 times negative 1 also to get 2, but I am only asking for the positive values, thus the positive factors. Now let's move on to 3. What are the factors of 3? What numbers do I multiply together to get 3? Well, 3 times 1 gives me 3, so my factors are 3 and 1. There aren't any other factors, so I will leave it at that. The factors of 6. What numbers do I multiply together to get 6? Well, 6 times 1. Are there any others? Well, 2 times 3. And I think that is it. Now, I would probably, if we were moving on here, and ask you to write these in a little bit more organized, I would probably ask you to write them as 1, 2, 3, and 6, but we'll do that later. Then let's look at the factors of 18. Well, 18 and 1, if I multiply those together, I get 18. Then 2 times 9 gives me 18. Are there any others? 3 times 6. If you get stuck and you can't think of anything, you can always go to your calculator and start dividing numbers into 18 in an organized manner. The next thing we're going to talk about is, what is the greatest common factor? Well, the greatest common factor would come into play if you're looking at factors of 2 different numbers. For example, if I'm looking at the factors of 12 and 20, the greatest common factor would be the factor that is the largest number common to both factors. So let's just go right into an example. What are the factors of 12? Well, we have 1 and 12. We have 2 and 6, and we have 3 and 4. Then let's look at the factors of 20. We have 1 and 20. We have 2 and 10. And then we have 4 and 5. What I'm looking for now is I'm looking for the largest factor that both numbers have. Well, they both have 1. They both have 2. And what else do they both have? They both have 4. So those are all common. Of those numbers, which is the largest factor? It would have to be 4. So the largest or greatest common factor of 12 and 20 is 4. Now this would be a great time to list them in order from smallest to largest, but I don't have a lot of room on here. Let's move on to the next example. What is the greatest common factor of 28 and 34? Well, let's start with 28. We have 1 and 28. We have 2 and 14. Now if you noticed, I have added an x at the bottom, in the bottom problem, and an x squared as well. I didn't put it on the top, so that's probably a little bit tricky to some of you, but I'll show you up here. So this should really be 28, oops, making all sorts of mistakes here. I'm going to change this to 28x and 34x squared. Change that on the fly. So my factors of 28 are 1, 28, 2, and 4. But then notice I also have an x. Now let's look at 34. I have 1, 34, 2, and what goes into 34? 17. And anything else? I don't think so. And then what else? X squared. We're going to separate that. X and X. Well, our common factors are 1 and 1, 2 and 2, and 1x. So the largest common factor is 2. And now we're going to look at the variables as well. They have a x and an x. We have to consider the variables as well. If they have one x in common, they have to bring that down as well. So I always go like this and bring that x down. 2x is my greatest common factor. Now what we're doing here is we're using our greatest common factor to actually factor. So I'm going to look at 14 and 35 in the next problem. And I'm going to ask myself, what is the greatest common factor out of 14 and 35? And if you have to list them all out, that's perfectly fine. If you don't need to, that's fine as well. So go ahead and list them out if you need to. If you don't, and you see that the greatest common factor of 14 and 35, if you see it right away, that's great. So I'll give you a minute to do that. You should see that the greatest common factor is 7. Do they have any variables in common? Nope. So what you do now is you take that greatest common factor and you put it right here. And it's really reverse distributive property. So I'm going to put that there. And now I take 7 and I divide it out of 14. 14 divided by 7 is 2, and you leave the m. 35 divided by 7 is 5. So again, like I said, it's the reverse distributive property. Now let's go on to the next one. 12x plus 42x. What is the greatest common factor of 12 and 42? It should be 6. All right. Well, remember, you take that and you put it over here, and then it's division. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Bring the x. 42 divided by 6 is 7. Carry the y. Now, if you wanted to check your work, all you would need to do is redistribute, and you would find that it worked out really well. All right, well, there's your first video. I know it's kind of long, but they won't all be this long. Have a great day.